Good evening, I'm Colgan, and you're welcome to the Business and Enterprise Show, Ireland's only live web-based business TV programme with over 2 million views in over 200 countries. And as always, we're coming to you live from our state-of-the-art studios in the Cabin Crystal Hotel. Well, the economy has turned its corner. Businesses are starting to grow, businesses are starting to expand. Now, for business to expand and grow, they'll need finance. Now, although AIB is backing Brave and Bank of Ireland is with you every step of the way, large and small, anecdotally, SMEs I've spoken to are still finding it difficult in getting finance. Perhaps it's time to have a new model. Perhaps that's what we're going to find out tonight, because tonight's guest is Derek Butler, and he's the CEO of Grid Finance. Derek, you're very welcome.
Delighted to be here.
Now, before we start talking about Grid Finance, let's find out a little bit about the man behind the brand. Who is Derek Butler?
Sure. Well, I'm originally from Castlepollard in County Westmeath. Grew up in a very rural community, but a great one. Had a very kind of innocent, playful existence growing up as a child, and then grew up in a small business. So I got to see from a very young age how small businesses tick, the importance of generating cash, and the challenges for anybody running a small business, you know. So really great time growing up in Westmeath.
And when you grew up, obviously business was strong that you wanted to do, but you obviously also had a kind of a good social conscience because you went to Africa.
That's right. So I've always had a really big interest in the world, and I spent my early professional career working with Goodbody Stockbrokers, Ernst & Young, qualified as a chartered accountant with PwC. But always had this interest in exploring, adventuring, and this curiosity about how the world worked. So, having reached a natural point in the firm to move on and do other things, I left PwC. I was working for the firm in LA and went out to work with aid agency Goal in East Africa. So I had a fantastic 4 years working with Goal initially in Uganda as head of finance, and then 2 years as country director in Haiti. I suppose my time there really taught me again just the power of enterprise, the power of entrepreneurs. One of the big lessons I learned about working in the developing world is that the engine of growth for those countries will be enterprise and entrepreneurs, and it's about getting behind those that can actually make things happen, because that's the really sustainable long-term solution. So,
and was that part of your role in Haiti and in Uganda? Was it to help fledgling entrepreneurs out there?
Yeah. So we had a really fantastic partner program in Uganda. So we worked with really super local civil society organizations. And in the course of my work there, I came across this wonderful micro-lending model called Village Savings and Loan Associations. And they were working brilliantly in northern Uganda, post-war northern Uganda. And they were a really simple concept. It was a concept of 10 to 20 women coming together every week to save and to lend together. They would have a small box. They would contribute a small amount of money every week. And then every week, one or two of those ladies would get a loan, either for school fees or for their small micro business. And what was wonderful about this is that everybody in that saving group won. So the people who were putting money in, they were getting a return on their money because they were giving out loans, and the people who needed some money were winning because they were getting access to capital. And this was in a context where there was no banking system and no capital. And it really got me thinking about how simple the premise of a bank is. What is a bank? It is not some institution to put up on high. It is simply a clearing system for capital. We put money in there for safekeeping, relying on the bank to get that money to entrepreneurs and to people who need it. And as we know, in 2008, that clearing system failed. So I, having spent 5.5 years overseas, wanted to come back to Ireland, see what I could do here, be part of the solution in Ireland, and took that kind of realization about the simplicity of banking with me back to Ireland, and thought, well, look, we can surely do something here with modern technology, and knowing well that there's lots and lots of money here, and that's where Grid Finance came out of. In Haiti as well, huge demand for capital. Both in Uganda and in Haiti, you had a scenario where the cost of credit was 20-25%. So there's a huge need to do something different in banking and different in financial services, both here in the developed world and also in the developing.
You mentioned there that the rate of interest in Haiti was 25%, you know. Last night I was watching the TV and there was ads for credit companies, you know, legitimate credit companies, and the interest rates was in the thousands.
That's right.
You know, an incredible setup. So
this underscores the need for change in banking and financial services, and Grid Finance want to be part of that change. We want to lead that initially here in Ireland and then hopefully overseas.
Now, did you take the model that you had seen working in Haiti and in Uganda and countries like that and just transpose it straight into Ireland, or was that just the nucleus of it and it was a system that you developed specifically for the Irish market?
It was very much the nucleus of it. So it was this realization that banking is a simple thing. And what can we do with modern technology that allows us to connect people who have money with those who need it? So we took that concept and that's how we built the Grid. And really that's what the Grid does. It connects people.
I just stop you there. The business is called Grid Finance.
Sure.
But that's not just a name that you like the sound of. You keep calling it the Grid. Is there symbolism in that?
Well, there is, because what does a grid do? You know, we're all familiar with the electricity grid, and the grid is all about connectivity. It's about connecting people. And for me, it's people who change the world. It's people who hold capital. So really the grid is about connecting those who have capital with those who need it, and making sure that in that equation everybody wins. The people who have capital, they need to get a better return on their money than they're getting by having it sitting in the banking system. We have 93 billion euros sitting in the Irish banking system. For us, every day when we go into the office, we think, well, even if we released 1 billion of that through the grid, the social impact, the jobs that would be created would be absolutely enormous. So the grid has connotations of connectivity, and that's what we do. We connect people.
So Grid Finance, the Grid, how does it work? You match, I suppose in a nutshell, you match small businesses with people who have money to lend.
That's
now,
exactly
what's
it.
the logistics of it?
Yeah, sure. So we facilitate small businesses to access up to 75,000 euros in loan finance. So the way it works is really simple. A borrower registers on the platform, takes a couple of seconds to register. They then create a loan application. It takes just a few minutes to create the loan application. They then upload their supporting documentation. That then gets reviewed by our credit team, and provided the business can demonstrate an ability to repay, and that ability to repay is anchored in their cash flow typically, it then goes live on the grid for up to 28 days. So the grid is our online shop window, is the best way of putting it, for small businesses. Once it's passed our credit process, our pool of lenders then review it. And if it's, let's say, a business is looking for 20,000 euros, our pool of lenders will offer a part of that loan. So they might offer 100 euro or 1,000 euros or 500 euros. So over those 28 days, the business gets financed. They could have 100 lenders lending to them, or 500 lenders, all little parts. And the beauty of this model is that the lender sets the interest rate. So they look at the loan and they say, well, I think that should be 5%. I think it should be 7%. And at the end of the process, the business looks and say, okay, my average interest rate is 8%. Excellent. I'll accept that loan. Who are these lenders? They're not just kind of faceless capitalists. These are real people motivated by two things. One, to get a better return on their money than what's sitting in the bank, and also by this idea of supporting local businesses that want to grow and develop and help Ireland.
And your typical rate of interest? I know it'll vary, but ballpark, what are we talking?
So at the moment, the average interest rate is 7.2%.
7.2%. And if you have money on deposit, are you even getting one?
Oh, less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
So if you got a little kind of nest egg somewhere,
yeah,
this is the ideal vehicle. You are getting a better return, but you have experts who have already vetted the business. Now, naturally, businesses fail. Just because you were vetted doesn't. And I suppose that's why you're earning your 7%, is because there's a risk involved. But how closely do you vet these businesses? Is it I suppose everyone on the team has banking background, so you're using the criteria that I suppose traditional banks use for vetting.
Yeah, so what we've discovered, yes, we do. We spent 18 months developing our own proprietary credit model, anchored off the collective experience of everybody in the team. So the team are experienced bankers, experienced chartered accountants, experienced financial advisors. But what we've discovered is that the traditional bank credit scoring model it doesn't fit very well with small businesses. And I'm not going to bore you with the detail of all of that, but there is a great opportunity to provide an access to capital for small businesses that are disenfranchised from traditional banking, the traditional banking system, as well as those who can access the traditional banking system. So we have a very solid proprietary credit model that really evaluates the company's ability to repay, and that gives huge confidence then to our lenders.
So you might be talking a small clothing business.
Yeah.
That would need a second sewing machine, because we've expanded here. I don't know what sewing machines cost, but I'm sure an industrial one, you probably may be talking about $1,500 to $2,000, give or take. If I went into the bank and says, look, it would nearly cost that in fees for them to set it.
Yeah.
So they're naturally not going to be interested. So as a small business, I would bring to you my track record. Look, we embroider school badges, and every year, come September, we're just flat out the door, because every school in the area wants us to embroider their badges onto their jumpers, and we need a second machine. This is what we have done with what we had up to this. We've turned over $3,000 a month. The cost of the business was $1,500 a month, so we're making a £1,500 surplus. But to expand, we need another machine, at which we will need another sewing machinist.
Yeah.
And here's all my support and documentation. Now, you obviously get the documentation, and I'm sure your years in banking have told you that what people tell you isn't always true, so you go through it to find it, and you realise, yes, that's exactly what they've been doing. The woman has been sewing badges in her house for the past 10 years. Great. So up it goes. And she's looking for £2,000 for a new sewing machine, and she gets 7 people have agreed to support it. That's great. She has her 7,000. Now, has she got individual agreements then with 7 people?
Yeah, so this is the beauty of the model. So once you join the grid, and you lend, it's a legally enforceable contract between each individual lender and the business. It's an electronic, legally enforceable contract. So yes, there is a legal contract there between the pool of lenders and the business.
I'm a slightly bigger entrepreneur, and I'm getting a loan of 10,000.
Sure.
And I've 22 lenders.
Yeah.
Have I then got 22 individual repayments, 22 individual legal agreements?
Yep.
And
so
22, I suppose, individual costs as well.
Yeah. So I suppose this is our value add. So what happens what happens there is that the business makes one repayment into the grid, and then that gets dispersed using our technology to the 22 lenders.
Yeah.
So it's a really easy system. We have a direct debit that we call from the business once a month for their repayment, and it gets dispersed among the lenders.
And use dispersal. But again, in the office filing cabinet, there are 22 legal agreements.
Well, there's no hard copy, but it's an electronic copy. It's an electronic contract that sits on the platform. Exactly.
So the investors or the lenders. By the way, what term do you use? Investors or lenders? Or?
We call them lenders.
Yeah,
we call them lenders because they're lending to great local businesses.
Are they Irish lenders lending to Irish businesses, or can anybody from all over the world? It's been on the World Wide Web, and the first W speaks for itself. It's worldwide. Sure. Could you get investors from anywhere?
Yep. So we're open to investors from all around the world. We have obviously an anti-money laundering policy and all the rest of it, just to manage the non-Irish investors. So we'll talk to anybody who's interested in lending on the grid. So far, all of our lenders are Irish. And the beauty of this model, Colm, is that it's really social. So the lenders and the people who are lending to these businesses are really interested in the businesses, and very often they turn into customers. So it's really powerful for the business. When they secure a loan on the grid, they now not only have the finance to grow their business, but they also have a pool of people who are interested in that business. And our platform allows the business to communicate with them and the lender to communicate with the business. And very often, the lender then, as I say, becomes a customer of that business. And that's a really, really nice part of this model.
I can imagine it's relatively easy for you to get customers for your product. You know, if you go to any networking event, by the end of it, you'll have 27 business cards thrust in your hand. By the time you get back to the office, there'll be 27 emails, and that's great. The other side, the lenders. How do you attract lenders? How do lenders get involved?
Yeah, so we've a variety. Well, firstly, to join the grid as a lender, it's really, really simple. It takes a few seconds to register. You need to just set your profile name and email address and password, and then you lodge funds into your grid account, and you do that in two ways. You do it via credit card or debit card and bank transfer. So you can get lending on the grid really, really quickly and really, really easily. We find them in a whole variety of ways. Word of mouth is very powerful. We do a lot of digital marketing. We do a lot of public relations. And we do a lot of talking to good people like yourself.
we have our uses. Just going back to somebody has defaulted.
Sure.
Who goes after the defaulter? Is it the grid? Is it the individual lenders?
So the grid does, and so this is part of our value as the matchmaker in the middle between the borrowers and the lenders. So if in the unlikely event that a business defaults, as I say, we only allow the very best businesses onto the grid. We follow central bank guidelines for the first 3 months of collection, and after, if we're still unsuccessful after those 3 months, we outsource it to an external credit reference, an external debt collection agency. What I'll say is this, though.
So, and the point I'm raising there is that if you have lent a business, if through the grid a business has gotten 10 grand, you default on 10 grand, that's kind of worth following up on.
Absolutely.
If you have invested 375 quid, and they've defaulted, you're going to go, I won't bother, you know. And I suppose people would possibly use that. Well, he owes me 375. He's not going to come after me. Your woman over there, I owe her 250. She's not going to come after me. But you'd come after him for, we'll say, the sizable lump up to 10,000.
Absolutely. So it's part of our value that we pursue a borrower in that scenario. But as you've just alluded to yourself, lenders diversify their risk. So, and again, this is the nice part of this model. So if you lodge €1,000 into your grid account, we say to lenders, spread that across your a variety of projects. Don't just put it necessarily all into one, although it's entirely up to them if they choose to do that. The other thing as well, which is again powerful about this model, is that there's a natural control mechanism in there. This is really social. The businesses are building relationships with their lenders, and the lenders are building relationships with businesses. So a business is going to be much more loyal and much more likely to repay the lenders on the grid because they're real people who are potentially customers than a faceless bank. So there's a natural control mechanism there. We also look at a business's public profile. So the more active they are on Facebook, it's actually a very positive thing, or more active on Twitter, or a good, strong online presence, because that allows lenders to have a sense that this is a very active business. And if a business defaults, where is a lender going to take to? Their Facebook page to say, oh, you've missed your repayment. So the model is very smart in that it has these natural control mechanisms in there to drive down the default risk. And I go back to where the inspiration for the business came from, this idea of people trusting each other and connecting people who have money with those who need it. Those village savings and loan associations in northern Uganda, the default rate was almost zero. So we're taking that principle of connecting people with businesses, you build a relationship of trust, and that in itself will drive down the
We were
the risk of
chatting
default.
earlier, and we kind of said it's not unlike not the credit union model, the old credit union. I know modern day credit unions are akin to banks now,
Yeah.
but the old style credit union that was set up in a little village
Yeah.
or in a suburb, and where everybody lent a hand, everybody worked there voluntary. There was credit committees that came in on the Saturday. The people who were working behind the counter, they did that voluntary, and it was community. I've some money to save, and while I'm saving it, you're lending it to that man. And it was very much in that model. Now, I know the credit union, I know if there was somebody here from the credit union, they would say, no, that's still what we work on.
Yeah.
But, they have changed. They are more like banks now.
Yeah.
But the system you seem to be operating on, it seems to be like that. People, I have money to invest, not a huge amount.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I have
exactly.
a small amount here. I want to get a return. I'm not an idiot, but I want to know what I'm doing. I want to know what I'm helping, and I want to see what I'm helping.
That's exactly it, and that philosophy is what we're doing in the 21st century. So although we're a digital business, we're an incredibly social, personal business.
Yeah.
Because what we're doing is facilitating relationships and helping people build relationships, and that's what the microfinance movement globally and the credit union movement here in Ireland was built on. Is built on this idea of real local people helping real local people, and that's what we're doing through our digital platform.
Now, some of the businesses you've already helped to set up, what's the profile of some of the businesses?
We've had an embroidery machine. so that resonates immediately. So we've had
You'll tell me now that she used to embroider the patches on the school jumpers. I really think I'm getting psychic.
yeah. So we've had a great uniform provider called Happy Threads. I might as well give them a plug.
Why not?
I
didn't hear that name. What was that name again?
Happy Threads.
Oh, that's a Happy Threads.
So
Yes, that rings a
really
bell.
successful business, growing, needed a new embroidery machine, and they used the grid because they wanted to access finance quickly and easily, and they wanted to engage their customers. We have a wonderful business called Harbourview Business Centre in South County Dublin. Two wonderful female entrepreneurs who took an old car showroom and turned it into a business centre, and they needed some money to overhaul their lighting and heating. And they are a brilliant success story because from application through to getting money in their bank account, it was 6 days. And I'll challenge any bank that will actually match that. And they raised it at 6.2%. We have a wonderful restaurant, a chain of restaurants called KC Peaches, who will shortly close out our largest loan ever, €55,000. And they're a wonderful growing Irish business who could absolutely have used the bank, but they decided to use the grid because it's new, it's different, it's easy, it's fast, and they can again engage their customers. So as they've been raising money on the grid, they've had little cards at every one of their tills saying, we are on the grid, be part of our story and lend to us on the grid. And they're engaging their customers and building a relationship. They're securing a loan for 36 months. So for the next 36 months, those lenders are going to get a repayment from KC Peaches and an email to say thank you for lending to us.
And a free dinner, hopefully.
And there might even be
There
free
might
dinner.
even be- it might even be a free
Well,
dinner.
we've also had a business, again, a couple of great entrepreneurs, a couple of young guys from Fresh Start Foods in North County Dublin who have started a business generating cash. They wanted to expand and open up a juice bar to serve the growing athletic community in North County Dublin. And what they did, they said for every €1,000 that you lend to us, we'll give you a 2-week fitness assessment. Absolutely brilliant. So it's this really social model. They're not just getting the money, but they've now got people who are going to use their product, you know.
Yeah.
So this is it, and it's really it's all about people. You know?
A very interesting thing there that you mentioned there. They were granted finance from the bank. They reached the criteria that the bank, but went for you. Well, I don't mean this in a bad way, but you're not the kind of lender of last resort. People are coming to you instead of banks.
Absolutely.
Would that be right?
Absolutely. So we have customers who could absolutely use the bank often have a track record with the bank, but they want to use
Just
us.
don't trust the bank anymore.
Well, yeah, they're disaffected, but they also want a customer journey that's easy and straightforward. We also think our interest rate is very, very, very competitive. But most importantly, it's easy and they can get access to finance quickly. And then the kicker is that they're also maybe engaging some customers along the way as well and building relationships.
Now, if we want to apply for funding, we threw out that broad supporting documentation. What is the supporting documentation that you would look for?
Yep, so it really all starts with bank statements. They're fact. So you start with your application, which is again media rich. So you explain why you need funds and you upload some video and some photographs, really proving your need for funds and what you're going to do with it. And then you upload your supporting documentation, which starts with bank statements. And then we will also look for management accounts, financial statements if they're available, authorization to borrow, a couple of other things. We make it as easy as possible.
What about
it's all online.
The old cash flow statement?
Yeah.
Or do you recognise that people kind of just flat down on the cash flow statements, if you'll pardon the pun, are often not worth the paper they're written on?
No, for sure. So what we look for is a project budget. So we say, look, show us what are you going to do with the 10 or 20 grand that you're raising on the grid. And what does that do? It gives confidence to our credit team. And then gives confidence to our lenders. So again, you as a business, you decide what you want to publish to the lenders. You can decide to publish all your documentation or none of it or some of it.
Yeah.
So again, we had a business recently and they published their financial statements and their project budget. And that was great because the lenders were able to pore over that and ask questions of the business and engage with them.
Because that is the thing, you are putting a lot of your documentation, a lot of your business online, so that kind of your competitors can see some of it too.
Well, you decide what you want to put up there, and that's the thing. The minimum that will be up there is the loan application with the photographs and video. It becomes, as I say, very engaging because you can ask the lenders can ask you questions, but you decide what documentation you want to put up there. It's very much borrower driven.
If I'm turned down by your credit team, will it be a straightforward yes or no, or will it say, look, Colm, you're actually weak in this area? Can I then go back, not necessarily adjust my figures, I said, he wanted me to put in 10,000 there, but make some reasonable adjustments, and then represent my documentation?
We love small businesses, and I mean that in a very, very genuine way. I grew up in a small business. I've seen the world over the power of small businesses.
All the big banks say they love small businesses.
I know, but like, small businesses are the engine of the economy. They employ 75% of the people in this country. They are 95% or whatever the statistic is of registered businesses. Small businesses are the engine of this economy, and we genuinely care about them. So we try to be constructive. So if it has to be a no, we explain as best we can why. We also provide a one-on-one debrief for an hour with the business owner to explain why it was a no. If that's something that they need and would benefit from. And then we've also developed a separate product. So what we discovered is that we have a lot of early stage businesses with limited cash flow that can't establish their ability to repay, but have people that are willing to support them. They may have family or friends who know that person, know that business, and want a way of structuring a loan to that business, that early stage business. So we've now developed a private fundraising product which allows you to use our platform to invite in your family or friends or those people who want to support you, to structure, formalise a loan, and then we manage the repayments. You don't get access to our pool of lenders because we can't establish.
But you get your expertise.
But exactly, and you can use the platform to formalise that loan, and we manage the repayments.
It's a fascinating product, and any of our viewers that are watching and want to contact you, tell them how they can contact you. Enter that one there.
Sure, yeah. It's www.grid.finance, just as simple as that. You can also contact us via email at info@grid.finance.
And just pick you up on that, just in case anyone didn't copy. Well, I know I didn't the first time anyway. The .finance is your .com.
That's exactly it.
So it's grid.finance. Well, Derek Butler, thank you very much for your time. a fascinating product, an exciting development in finance, and I wish you the best of luck with it. So Derek Butler, CEO of Grid Finance, thank you for your time. I've been Colm Colgan. You've been watching the Business Enterprise Show. Good night.
Cavan Crystal Hotel provides 4-star accommodation on the edge of Cavan Town. Located conveniently on the Dublin Road, just 60 minutes away from Dublin. With 85 beautifully appointed bedrooms and a number of luxurious suites. We offer wedding packages. With our one wedding a day policy, we guarantee to make yours a special day. Enjoy a meal at our award-winning Opus One restaurant, or have a drink in the atrium or residence bars. Feeling energetic? You can work out in Zest Health and Fitness Club, or maybe pamper yourself and visit Utopia Health and Beauty Clinic, or Avita's Hair Salon, both located on site. Situated only 5 minutes from Cavan Town Centre and local amenities. Cavan Crystal Hotel, gateway to Ireland's Lakelands.